Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday, and welcome to Cisillion's next episode of our Cisilion Live podcast, focusing on a recent series of migrating to cloud calling. Today is very much following feedback from you guys, from our followers, our customers. You've asked us for one thing: be more specific about how Cisilion can help us. Naturally, we've tried to be as generic and as agnostic as we can, and today I'm pleased as always to be joined by two of the best in the industry actually on this subject, Iqbal and Rob. I'll hand over to you guys in a moment. The most prominent, well, I tell a lie, the most prominent question we have is how much does this cost? We'll come to that later. Realistically though, the most interested parties are asking that question, well, how long does this take from start to finish? And, you know, back in the day, you look at a PBX migration, you're talking a good 12 to 18 months, aren't you? But Rob, if I may, my friend and chief strategy officer, random customer coming to you, cloud calling's all good. How long does it take, start to finish?
And Craig, great opening question. Yeah, we've been asked that a fair few times. Like all these things, right? It of course depends on a load of things. But from a technology perspective, from an enablement perspective, and an organisation that knows what they want to do, has gone through all the things that we touched on the previous sessions around, you know, what vendor and can they do it, and all the features and all these kind of things. Then actually really quickly, I mean, we've got, you know, if I look at three of the big projects that we've got on at the moment, you know, you look at the size of these and say, oh, you know, that's an 18-month, you know, that's an 18-month project, that's a year, you know, when do we do these things? You know, we're working with one of the leading equipment hire companies, for example, at the moment. They've had a on-prem phone system for many years. It's never really caused a problem, but they had a different one in almost every location. They've got about 170 sites, and they actually had a separately procured system all over the place. They've found, you know, not just through COVID, but generally that it's just not delivered what they need, and they'd always looked at cloud and thought it's just going to be a really hard thing to do. We're in the middle of what we believe is an 8-week program, which will see all 170 sites, which range from, you know, 100 user locations to 3 or 4 site, you know, almost retail type offices within 8 weeks. And that's, you know, that's porting numbers from, you know, over 100 different suppliers and phone systems, users through some basic training, deploying new handsets or headsets into locations, and of course facilitating for people working from home. So that's one example. We're working with another organisation that's got about 120 gyms across the UK and Europe. Again, multiple providers, some cloud, some on premise. You know, 15 or so you know, common area phones and user level phones in each location. We're doing that over a period of 4 months. That's mainly around fitting around with the way they're opening their gyms. That's also introducing a completely new standardized IVR process for call routing, templating that model for future deployments. We've got some compliance call recording going in for training and monitoring purposes, and of course, you know, new phones and trainings. We're doing that in 4 months. But actually, you know, one of the quickest that we've done was a rail company that we've worked with. So they're the largest rail franchise in the UK. Again, very similar. They had aging phone systems that were failing. COVID meant that people couldn't get into the offices to fix stuff and maintain stuff, so they decided to rip it all out and move to cloud. We did that in less than 3 weeks, from initial phone call to deployment and go live. And not only that, they managed to extend that environment to the drivers. You know, so their drivers used to use their mobile phones and call into call centres to then speak to their shift officers or the shift managers or the supervisors. They can now do that directly through the app on their phone. Does that, hopefully that answers the question, Craig?
It does.
I was going to. My final point was going to be actually a question, if you don't mind, Craig. So I was actually going to say to you, Iqbal, you know, from that perspective, and obviously I know you and your team have been quite close to many of these. how have we been helping customers? And I guess what's changed, right? So, telephony migrations were generally very complicated and required a lot of time. What's changed and how are we now helping?
Good question, Rob. There's lots of things at play here, I guess. I mean, if we perhaps look back at the last few weeks, we've talked about the decision-making process of why cloud calling. Why is it relevant to everybody? And hopefully we've answered those questions, and I think most customers appreciate the benefits. And once an organization has decided on the cloud strategy or vendor of choice, then the next steps are, how do we work out a way of migrating and transitioning to this new service? And this is after cost, that's the next big question and the next big challenge. And I've got a few slides that will show to kind of demonstrate what the challenges are and how we've been helping our customers. And hopefully the audience listening will be able to benefit from understanding actually and appreciating the challenges, and also seeing how they can actually take advantage of making this transition to cloud. And Rob, you asked the question around how things have changed. I think if you had asked me this question 6 months back, a typical project of transitioning, particularly voice services or to cloud calling, could potentially take 12 to 18 months, depending on the size of the organization and obviously locations and everything else. I think there isn't one answer that fits all. The important thing is that we fully understand and appreciate what the requirements are across the board, understand the requirements across different sites, different locations, different countries. These things are all important because there's different rules for different countries to consider. But certainly post-COVID, we're now seeing that being escalated massively, where now customers are really pushing us to help them make this transition quicker than they ever have before. And what we don't want to do is, we want to ensure that the quality of these migrations are, as good as they would be had we have taken time. So what we at Cisilion, what we've done is we've invested in tools to help automate the process, to help fast track just this. So let's look at the challenges. Looking at big enterprise globally, you'll have large amounts of data. Rob gave an example of a customer of ours with 170 sites. There's lots of data across different sites. Understanding how things are configured across these locations. Looking at users, devices, dialing features, preferences. All of those things need to be taken into account. Now, you might be able to pull that information in, but that will all be raw data. So being able to make sense of it is certainly a big challenge. The next thing, and probably the most important thing, is feature parity. And that's one question I get asked more than anything from any of our customers is, can Teams do this? Can Teams do that? I can do this on my current PBX system. And this is where we actually, the proof is in the pudding. We will look at how things are configured today, and we will use our tooling to discover and analyze feature parity between what was there previously to what can be delivered on the new cloud calling platform, whether that's Microsoft Teams or WebEx calling or whatever. And again, as I said, that's one of the key things around feature parity. And the final one around the challenges is labor. The amount of time it takes to extract this data, making sense of it, and then implementing the new solution, making sure that you're able to replicate most of what users are doing today. Users want to come back in on Monday morning and they want to be able to carry on working the way they do. Why should the way they work be disrupted? So we want to try and make that as easy as possible. So those are the key things that we identify as challenges. Just moving on to the next slide. What's the ambition here? What can we help try and achieve? We want to try and drive that cost down for our customers. There's a cost to migrate users. I think we all acknowledge that. Most of our customers do. How can we keep that cost as low as possible? We've talked about fast deployment, particularly at a time like now. It's more important than ever that we are able to fast track that deployment. with obviously accuracy as well. And then finally, reducing the risk. When you're relying on individuals or humans to do config changes, there's always an element of error. So we've tried to kind of fast track that. So those are the kind of three things that we've tried to achieve. Moving on to the next topic, next slide. So how do we address these challenges? We've built a model. We're using the tools to be able to first carry out a Cisilion PBX assessment. And what this means is we'll do a full assessment and analysis of the current PBX configuration, and that can be anything. That could also not necessarily be a legacy PBX. That could be another IP-based platform, or potentially even another cloud platform. The important thing is we're able to extract that information in a very automated way, and then present that back to organizations in a readable way, in a way that makes sense. So tying all of those things back to user personas and things like that. So you as an organization are able to analyze that data. So that's kind of number one, and that's the very first thing that we do. Secondly, is the planning of migration. So once we know how things are configured today, we will work out exactly how that looks like on the target cloud calling platform. So, and then identifying what can be done, what can't be done. And that helps us to plan who we can potentially migrate first and perhaps phase in eventually. Or maybe the two platforms need to coexist, and that's very common right now, where certain features are perhaps possible in cloud calling that are absolutely necessary for a business. Then they can remain on the existing platform, or we can find another solution for them. In any case, we will help plan that and pull that together. Once that's been identified, and this is where it gets exciting. This is where things become where we take it to the next level, where we use automated tools to help push that configuration, the way users are configured, into the new cloud calling platform in an automated way. And the way we deliver this is as we migrate users across, our tooling makes changes on the existing platform as well as the new to ensure that that transition happens as seamlessly as possible. There's obviously a bunch of other things that go on in the background, when it comes to endpoints and things like that, replacing endpoints, managing the porting of numbers, but from a calling configuration perspective, we've done what we can to fast track this as quickly as possible. And organizations sometimes come to us and they just want an assessment because they just want a view of how things are configured today, and we're seeing a lot of that happen today. Some organizations want us to do the end-to-end, which is from assessment to migration and then go live and then helping them with adoption, and that's where we go. So kind of moving on to the next slide.
Just while we're doing that,
sure.
We've had a little question come in. Try and back these off as they come from Thomas. Thank you very much. How many cloud migration projects have you completed? And quite a holistic question now. Assuming you're talking about cloud migrations, cloud calling migrations, because we've done. I mean, for the last 10 years, we've been doing generic cloud migrations. Nevertheless, from a cloud calling perspective, my answer would actually be more than ever. And I say ever because we've been doing these things for, it's on topic at the moment, but for 10, 15 years. But Rob, to give a more tangible answer behind that, how many cloud calling migration projects have we completed at a high level?
Wow, that's always a number you have to go back to the cards on. So I don't have an exact number. What I can say is we do a lot of collaboration, a lot of voice projects, and I'd say now probably 90% of them are all cloud. We've been doing cloud migrations for voice and calling for 4 years, I think. Now, the first one we did, I think we might have mentioned this on a previous live event, was actually Sega, who you'll probably all have heard about, and they were in fact, I think, the second company in the UK to adopt Microsoft Cloud Calling at the time, which was based on Skype for Business Online. Then, we have done, I mean, hundreds. I think is probably the only way I can probably answer that question. across pretty much every sector. We've got customers in recruitment, we've got customers in retail, we've got customers, in professional services organisations. We're starting to see a much bigger shift in some of the more traditional, I'd say slower to move environments, such as legal and finance now. So we're starting to see them move because, and again, mainly due to the disruption COVID's had, because organisations have suddenly been faced with working remotely, and in many cases either not had access to their phone system, so they've had to work on call diverts from a system to a mobile, which means that outbound calls are being placed on a mobile, not going through the phone system, therefore, not being recorded or whatever else needs to happen. Or they've had to set up, very clunky in many cases, ways to allow them to get access to that phone system. So quite a few. And actually on the back of that, another question, which Iqbal, I'll pass over to you if you don't mind, which kind of relates to that, is what do we do with existing DDIs and phone numbers that can't be split? I think the question here is more, and sorry, this one's anonymous, but around where organisations have got perhaps split blocks of DDIs, then how do we help ensure that we can migrate those across so people don't lose their numbers?
Yeah, it kind of really depends. That can be quite a challenge for lots of organizations. Depending on what aspects of their current system they want to retain, we can deploy gateways to help split that traffic if necessary, and take control of the split. But if it comes to completely migrating services across to cloud calling, then there needs to be a decision made around how those DDIs can be split. And if the telco is not able to do that, we can work with either the telco to try and negotiate a way in which we can retain the numbers that are more important, but there needs to be then a plan put in place to potentially change numbers for certain individuals in a business, and that can be a problem. Unfortunately, that tends to be a challenge around the telcos rather than something that we can control. We can try and use technology to help split traffic. That's something we can control, but that can be a costly exercise. So, if you do have that issue, I encourage you to get in touch. We'll help analyze and have we'll review it, and we'll see what we can do to help. We'll be more than happy to help. Just to kind of finish off on the migration piece, if you're able to share that last slide for everybody, just to try and to kind of illustrate the benefits around this. We can pretty much assess any environment, as I've said, not just Cisco or Skype for Business traditionally. Looking at the old Siemens, Mitel, Avayas, we can help extract that data and help that migrate into services like Microsoft Teams and WebEx calling. It's not exclusively these two. We've picked these two platforms because they are the ones that we lead with. But if there is another cloud calling service that you're looking to migrate to, we can certainly kind of try and help there as well. And just to kind of summarize the benefits on this, we think it's 10 times quicker than doing any other deployment because of how we can automate that. The accuracy is spot on because we're able to analyze that data. I guess any issues with that or any errors with that data would be picked up pre-migration. There's cost saving to be had, as we've said already. The process of migration is seamless, and I think that's definitely the biggest concern for most organizations. And ultimately, that ties into helping with an easier kind of user adoption. And hopefully a reduced post-migration support as well. But that's, we're here to not just do the migration and just let it go. We're here to kind of help our customers post-migration, and I think that kind of leads us on to what comes next. It's all well and good. We're all migrated. We've got voice in the cloud. We understand some of the benefits, but actually, what more is there to come around voice? And one of the key things I picked up in Spire last week, Microsoft made quite a bold statement around artificial intelligence. They've always talked about every company becoming a technology company, but they now suggesting that every company will become an AI company, and I thought that was quite an interesting point to make, because we are now starting to see AI being incorporated into so many things, including voice. We're seeing AI built into contact centers when it comes to voice, but we're now, I think, as we progress with these cloud solutions, we are also starting to see some innovation around how AI can help with analyzing voice services and helping many of the customers being able to kind of leverage that AI capability to take kind of voice services to the next level. So those are kind of exciting things to come, and customers will only be able to leverage that once they've made that transition to cloud. And I know, Rob, you've got a few thoughts on the innovation side as well. It'll be nice to share that, and maybe we can kind of finish off on our experience in general across the kind of customers that we've been helping in this space.
Yeah, I think, and talking about innovation and AI is always one of those things that I think you either look at and go, that's a great buzzword, but what does it really mean for me? Or yeah, that's not for me, I don't need that kind of stuff. And I think when I look at particularly around kind of voice services in particular, I think some of the things that we're seeing, and some of this, Iqbal, as you say, is particularly around kind of the contact center space, the customer service space. But it's leveraging AI to be able to do things like detect fraud, to detect, this of course spans not just across the voice platform, but we're all used to getting those phone calls from people claiming to be someone they're not. Again, particularly now, trying to trying to lean on the global pandemic and money's tight for people and those kind of things. So we see a lot of that, but we see a lot of AI now actually working to detect stress in people's voices, even obviously knowing where the numbers are coming from, being able to do advanced tracing in the background around actually where those numbers are coming from, working with all the different agencies that are collectively trying to consolidate to ensure that that phone call you get from British Gas is actually from British Gas. So I think that's one example. I think the second example really is how and which is really about the platform piece. And I think we touched on last week around there are lots of different cloud calling providers. For us and any of our customers on this call will know we focus very heavily on Microsoft and on Cisco, and a lot of that is because of the platform investment that you have. And there were announcements a couple of weeks back that many of you would have seen around changes that Microsoft have made to the way that calling plans are licensed and how much cheaper they've become. But a lot of the reason for these things and consolidating is because it unleashes the power of the platform. And I think, no more is your voice just a separate thing that you go off and do. It's integrated into everything else that you do. So we're starting to see this intelligence coming through to the platform. So, you get a missed call from somebody. Well, actually, so what? Well, it's now possible to use, automation tools within the platform to recognise that you've got a missed call from that, feed it through to somebody else, generate you an email, transcribe the voicemail if they left you a voicemail into text, and detect within the voicemail sentiment analysis. So is it, are they angry? Are they pleased? Is it a compliment? Is it a demand? Is it a sales opportunity? And so we're really starting to see this technology now that's been there really in the written word for several years come into the voice platform. So I'm conscious we don't really have time to. I could talk about this stuff for ages. We probably don't have the time to go into these in detail, but these are things that if we get the opportunity to work with all of you on the call, these are things that we can showcase. Yeah. For you. And Craig, does you have anything to add?
Yeah, for me, definitely. I want to talk about organizational analytics, which have a flavour of AI. Nevertheless, just before we do, and Iqbal, just going back to your presentation earlier, I forgot to mention to you guys, our lovely followers, that we're actually providing a giveaway today. And you can summarise a lot of Iqbal's slides, the processes within there, whereby we run workshops. And I noticed one of the customer is, how important are these workshops? And for me, they're fundamental, right? And very much Pareto principle, getting that planning right, delivery comes naturally. So Iqbal, maybe that question, what about workshops, to you? But just before, Rob, as per your question, organizational analytics. So the ability to see across your whole business, departmentally or individually, how people are using and engaging in the technology, how much effort and work they're putting in, and that doesn't come from a big brother kind of place like it used to. It certainly comes from a duty of care, especially during a crisis like this. Everyone's at home working much longer hours, but we want to maintain their productivity. So the AI within the analytics tool enable our customers and hopefully your users, if you're following us, to put programs of work in place for people and ethical business practices that are monitored, managed, and updated as somebody's career goes through. And I think that's really, really powerful on a personal level in terms of innovation. Just going back to those workshops, Iqbal, before wrap up, mate. Do you want to give a quick overview of what they look like and what customers should expect to get from them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. In terms of kind of doing the workshops, as you said, the importance is there, not just from our perspective to help understand our customers' business and their challenges and their requirements, but it helps them to kind of build a roadmap. And I think that's really, really valuable for the kind of feedback that we've had so far. We'll help understand where the customer is today, as a business, but also technically where they are, which is important, and then look at what the vision is, try and kind of build a strategy and agree on a vision that the customer is working towards. And once we've agreed that, we will start to then map out exactly how we achieve this. So from a cloud calling workshop perspective, for example, we will talk through everything that we've discussed over the last few weeks in these podcasts, but in more detail, making it more relevant to the customer, understanding their requirements. And we're not charging the customers for this either. So it's kind of it's a zero risk for the customer. I think more importantly, it'll help them to understand some of the complexities, because when it comes to these types of transitions and migrations, a lot of this is dependent on other factors. From a Microsoft Office 365 perspective, for example, there's lots of prerequisites around making sure that other workloads have been transitioned to Office 365, for example. These are the kind of things that we will talk through, work through, and identify. And by the end of the workshop, we should have a plan in place around how we intend to make this transition happen and kind of make it a reality. But yeah, please get in touch if you want more information. Happy to talk through it, schedule it, and hopefully you guys see some real value in that. And just to kind of finish off, we've got another session next week. We're going to give you guys a break from the cloud calling. Appreciate we've been focusing on this in the last few weeks, so we'll change it up. And I think in the coming weeks, the plan is during the holiday season we may take a break from it, but certainly from next week's perspective, the focus will be on Enterprise Connect Virtual, which I know many of my customers are attending. This used to be a big event that used to take place across different countries. Obviously, this time around it would have been in, I guess, London Excel, but this will be a virtual event. And likewise, many of the keynotes, many of the vendors that are attending, there's some really, really good sessions around kind of transformation modeling for the short term and the long term. There's also sessions around how leaders should be planning for, post-crisis and things like that, and we'll cover off some of those things next week. But also from a technology standpoint, we always find the likes of Cisco and Microsoft coming to these events and showcasing some of what's to come. So yeah, we look forward to that. We appreciate you guys making the time to listen to us for this 30 minutes. And if you do have any follow-up questions, get in touch. We'll be happy to speak to you guys. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day, enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the weekend, and look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Craig.